This is dralvin.com, the business of wisdom, where world leaders and thinkers do come to chat. Very fortunate to have the international best-selling author and also my personal nutritionist, the Juice Lady. How you doing today?
We're doing great. It's a beautiful sunny day.
Just in case this is the first time a person hearing the term the Juice Lady, what kind of juice you juicing, Juicy Lady?
Well, this morning, my morning blend is cucumber, lemon, ginger, carrot, celery, and some dark leafy greens, and chard is what I'm using today. And that's my morning energizer.
Now, notice when you list a list of ingredients, I didn't hear any fruit. So how come you didn't put any fruit in there?
I just really like to keep the sugars low in my diet. I find that I do best on that. Some people add a little apple, like a little green apple, which is lower in sugar than the other types of apples. But I keep mine really low. So I put in lemon. Carrot is a little bit higher in sugar as the vegetables go. And so for me, that's plenty sweet. Other people like a little extra sweetness, so they add that apple in.
Just out of curiosity, is there any such thing as good sugar versus bad sugar, or should we try to have a minimum amount of sugar at all in our diet?
I really recommend minimizing the sugars for a whole lot of reasons. It's very helpful for the pancreas to minimize those sugars, and for weight loss, it's extremely important to get the carbs, and that's a simple sugar, a simple carb, to get those low in the diet. But it's also a really good idea to train our taste buds not to need things so sweet. But if you are going to use a sweetener, I recommend stevia. It's an herb. It's the best sweetener I have found, and I like, when I do occasionally use a drop or two, the sweet leaf vanilla cream. You can find it everywhere as Whole Foods types of stores go. And you don't need much at all, just a little drop or two.
Just out of curiosity, I'm learning, I guess growing up there were only kind of two tastes. You had sweet and sour. But I'm learning there are a lot of possible tastes. When we have a variety of different types of taste, does that help our diet out when we can, some people like pungent tastes and other types of tastes. I can't think of all the tastes, but there is more than sweet and sour, right?
There certainly is, and they're salty. Of course, Americans are really into their salt, too. But there's also bitter. Bitter is something we all kind of shy away from at first, because that wasn't something that we have in our society been trained to want in our diet. And yet there are many greens that are bitter, herbs that are bitter, and that's a taste that comes into play also, along with the sweet and the salty and the sour. And so we need to develop taste for many different flavors and for spices and herbs that flavor our food. When we have a lot of flavor, we are satiated, or satiety is something that nutritionists talk about a lot, where it's that feeling of fullness, like we've had enough to eat and we're satisfied. And our brain gets a signal and our whole body gets a signal that this was a pleasing meal all the way around to our taste buds and to our body as far as nutrition goes. And what I found in weight loss programs, if we can up the herbs, the spices, the different flavors, it helps tremendously in eating smaller portions, because we feel so very, very satisfied with all of that great flavor.
That is so true. Now, one of the things that you helped me to do quite a bit is that I'm really noticing that my appliances are offended at me because I'm doing more raw. The stove is not on as often, and I'm not using those kind of things. Tell me about some of the benefits of increasing the amount of raw vegetables I have in my life.
Well, I just wrote an article called Metabolism Reboot, and raw is at the heart of the reboot of the metabolism, and here's why it works so well. It's rich in biophotons, and photons are a new frontier of research coming out of Germany. It's the light rays of energy found in raw foods. When we cook them, we lose them. They spark up our metabolism, our mitochondria, those little energy furnaces, I call them, the little units in our cells that produce ATP. That's our energy fuel. And when we spark that up, of course, we're going to raise our metabolism. We're going to lose more weight without even working out We're just going to be burning more calories, even at a resting heart rate. And then, of course, if we add in our workout schedule, we're really going to be humming along, as I call it, with our body functioning so well. So that's why one of the top reasons why raw is so important. Increasing it. I'm not trying to make anybody all raw foodists, but to increase, we can all do that. We can add an extra glass of vegetable juice. We can add a green smoothie. We can add a salad, some vegetable sticks, or you might want to get into some fancier things and try some wonderful gourmet tasting raw food recipes. And then you're going to be adding enzymes. And enzymes are extremely important, and they're very heat sensitive and processing sensitive. And so our cooked food and our processed food, it destroys enzymes. And enzymes help to digest the food. When we get more raw food, it spares our organs that have to produce these enzymes, like the pancreas. It spares them a lot of extra hard work, so they can count on other things. They can work hard at repair and rejuvenation. And it spares us energy, so we have more energy to work out, to walk those few extra steps, to get more things done in a day and burn more calories. So all the way around, everywhere you look, it's just such a great idea to increase that raw food.
That is so true that we need to do those type of things. One of the things that you mentioned to me off the air the other day, and you just touched on it, is raw gourmet. Help me with that term, raw gourmet.
Yes, it's a new kind of emerging style of eating, and there are restaurants popping up across America, more in the major cities, of raw food, gourmet raw food. And who would have thought that you could get a gourmet raw food pizza, enchilada, lasagna, taco, taquita, spaghetti, meatballs, even a burger, nut burger, raw. I'll tell you, there's nothing like trying yummy, delicious raw food recipes. We just completed our raw food juice and cleanse retreat, our first one here in New Mexico, and everybody absolutely raved about the food. We had lasagna the first night. It was all raw, and it was made with layers of very thinly sliced zucchini. You have to use a mandolin to get those thin slices of zucchini, and a raw marinara sauce, and a cashew nut cheese that went in between the layers, and fresh basil and other fresh herbs in there. And all week, the people who attended our retreat kept mentioning that lasagna. They were just raving about it. We had spring rolls for lunch one day that were over the top delicious, and it was just thinly sliced cucumber with grated vegetables and sprouts and a really delicious sauce that was drizzled over it, and a little salad on the side, and people just loved that. We had a raw food pizza, and the crust was made with sprouted buckwheat and leftover carrot pulp from juicing. People are always asking me, what do I do with this leftover pulp? Well, it can become part of a cracker, and that cracker can become your base for a pizza. We made a raw marinara sauce that went over the top of that cracker, and a cashew nut cheese that went on top with some basil, fresh basil on top of that. We had an enchilada on Saturday at noon to send everybody off, and that was made with raw corn tortilla that was done in a dehydrator, as the crackers were. And we had a nut cheese filling with chopped vegetables, a raw tomato sauce over the top of that, and a little nut cheese on top of that. And people just said this was some of the best food they'd ever had in their entire life.
Now, you mentioned sauces, and when you deal with sauce, you have to be very careful, because sometimes we can have things raw, but the sauces can add a lot of calories. What can we do to have the sauce to help it to be a wonderful tasting gourmet raw, but not have too many calories?
Yes, I have some great recipes for sauces in my book, The Juice Lady's Living Foods Revolution, that are not high in calories, like the raw marinara. It's tomatoes and basil and sun-dried tomatoes and a little bit of olive oil and other herbs and sea salt, and you blend it all up, and it's so delicious. You can also do like a salsa sauce with cilantro and hot pepper and tomato and a little cucumber, and blend all that up, and that's very low in calorie, very high in flavor. You can do a pesto sauce. Usually I use pine nuts in that, so that's going to up the calories a little bit, but if you keep the pine nuts low and lots of basil, a little bit of olive oil, you still have a great sauce without a lot of calories. And I've done a red pepper sauce with tomatillo, tomatoes, and a little bit of a pinch of cayenne pepper and lemon juice, and blended all that up, and people absolutely loved it. And that is a very, very low-calorie sauce. So I just encourage our listeners to look around, check out recipes. You'll find a lot of vegetable sauce recipes that I think will surprise you at how delicious they are, and you just pop everything in the blender, turn it on, and you've got your sauce.
Sounds good to me. If a person wants to get in contact with you, how can they do so?
They should go to my website, Juice Lady Info, I-N-F-O. So that's juiceladyinfo.com. You can sign up for my free newsletter. I have tips all the time coming out on health, body, soul, and spirit health, and also recipes. And also check out our upcoming retreat, Juice and Cleanse Retreat, with those gourmet raw foods also, October 14 through 20.
Well, thank you so very much for the great work you're doing. This will be featured at dralvin.com, the Business of Wisdom website, also dralvin.com on Facebook, and also we're on Twitter at Dr. Alvin Jones, and we'll post this there. And you continue to have a remarkable and amazing day, okay?
You too. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your show.